The galaxy had always been a place of wonders, but also of rules. For thousands of years, the Galactic Union had kept peace. It was a place where hundreds of species shared knowledge, technology, and culture. Trade ships sailed from system to system, and scholars studied the stars as if they were part of a grand library. The galaxy felt calm, almost eternal. But even in calm seas, storms could appear without warning. Far beyond the known trade routes, past the outer borders of explored space, there was a quiet sector. It had been empty for centuries. Union scanners showed nothing but dark voids, asteroids, and distant stars. No fleets, no colonies, no signs of life. It was a place that most civilizations ignored. Some even joked about it, saying it was where lost things went to hide. Yet one day the silence ended. Deep in the empty sector, the Union's long-range scanners picked up a signal. At first it seemed ordinary. A small pulse, weak and hard to detect. But as the data processed, technicians noticed something strange. The signal was encrypted, but it carried a pattern unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. It was fast, precise, and organized. Whoever sent it knew what they were doing. "Sir," said Lieutenant Rawl, a young officer at the monitoring station. "This signal, it's not from any known civilization, it's human." The room fell silent. Humans. The species was almost forgotten by the Galactic Union. After all, humanity had only recently left their homeworld, a planet called Earth. They had no colonies beyond their system, no fleets in the stars. At least that was the official knowledge. And yet, here was proof that something, somewhere, had already achieved faster-than-light communication. The news traveled faster than light. Within hours, the Galactic Union Council convened an emergency session. Scientists, ambassadors, and military leaders crowded the halls of the capital. A massive floating station orbiting a white sun. Screens glowed with maps, charts, and diagrams of the unknown signal. "This is impossible," said Ambassador Tarek Valen, a four-eyed scholar from the reptilian species Zarkon. His voice was deep and careful. "Humans are not supposed to have this kind of technology yet. Their history shows only a century or two of space travel. And now this it is extraordinary." "Extraordinary is one word," muttered Commander Avella of the Brithian fleet. "Dangerous is another. Who knows what they can do?" But the scientists were already debating possibilities. Some suggested it was a probe, sent by humans without their knowledge. Others worried it was a trap. And a few dared to say the unthinkable. Perhaps humans were already more advanced than anyone realized. Meanwhile, in the dark sector, something was moving. It was not a fleet. It was not a small ship. It was massive, silent, and deliberate. Sensors couldn't fully scan it. The readings came back scrambled. Engineers scratched their scales. Technicians whispered among themselves. No one had ever seen a ship like this before. The signal pulsed again. This time the words were clear, transmitted in perfect galactic common. "UNSC, we are here. Stand by for communication." The council erupted in murmurs. The letters UNSC were unknown in their records. What could it mean? And how could humans, a species so new to the stars, send such a clear and strong signal across this distance? The panic was subtle at first. Rumors began to spread. Some factions whispered that humanity might be dangerous, capable of building ships that could rival entire fleets. Others suggested that perhaps humans were not a threat at all, that they simply wanted to be part of the galaxy. Then came the first scouts. The Union sent small reconnaissance ships to investigate the source. They were careful, small enough to avoid provoking any potential hostility, yet strong enough to handle minor dangers. But as the ships approached human space, none returned. Communications went silent. One by one, the small fleet vanished without explanation. The galaxy began to take notice. News networks buzzed with speculation. Alien journalists debated endlessly about this new race. What did they want? Where had they come from? Why had they hidden for so long? In human space, things were quiet. The humans themselves were aware that the galaxy was watching. They had been building in secret, using raw materials from asteroids, moons, and uninhabited planets. They had studied every flaw, every weak point in their technology. Every warship, every starbase, every engine had been constructed with purpose. They did not seek war. They did not seek conquest. But they were ready if needed. On the bridge of their flagship, The UNSS Leviathan, Commander Sarah Holt stood silently. The ship was immense, longer than any starport could hold, and yet it moved with grace. Its engines glowed with a quiet power, and its hull was lined with materials that no scanner in the galaxy could fully decode. "Status report," Holt said, her voice calm, carrying the authority of someone who had earned it through decades of experience, even though she was younger than many of her alien counterparts. "Lieutenant Jameson," the ship's communications officer answered. "Signals from the Union fleets are increasing. They are confused, uncertain, perhaps scared. They haven't made any contact yet." Holt nodded. She knew this would happen. Humans had always been underestimated. Every challenge on Earth, from survival in harsh environments to technological competition, had prepared them for this moment. Now they were no longer just a planet-bound species. They had a place among the stars, and the galaxy would notice. Back in the Galactic Union, panic grew. A single unknown warship was enough to unsettle centuries of stability. Military leaders urged the Council to respond with fleets. Scientists warned that aggression could provoke a species they barely understood, and diplomats debated endlessly about what message should be sent. But the humans waited. They did not move aggressively. They did not fire first. They understood the value of patience. Then came the first public display. Across every network, across every system in the Union, sensors picked up the Leviathan as it emerged from hyperspace, near the border of neutral space. The size alone was enough to stun. The ship was over 50 kilometers long. No one had ever seen a single ship so massive, so organized, and so precise. It hovered silently like a shadow against the stars. Union analysts tried to scan the ship, to understand its engines, its hull, its systems. The data was impossible to decode fully. Some scanners even overheated from the energy being emitted. The galaxy realized one simple truth: humans had built something beyond comprehension. And then the message came. Clear, direct, calm. "This is Commander Sarah Holt of the United Nations starship Leviathan. We come in peace, but we are prepared." The words echoed across every corner of the galaxy. For the first time in thousands of years, the entire Union held its collective breath. Was this an invitation? A warning or a test? Scientists were amazed. Diplomats were nervous. Military leaders were unsure. And somewhere deep in the void, the humans watched and waited. For centuries, the galaxy had believed itself to be the pinnacle of civilization. But as the Leviathan appeared, with humans aboard who had conquered their own world, who had survived disasters, plagues, and wars, the galaxy began to understand something new. Perhaps humanity was not just another species. Perhaps humanity was something the stars themselves had been waiting for. And so the galaxy shifted. The calm that had lasted millennia was gone. Whispers of a storm spread from system to system. It was not a storm of violence, but of curiosity, fear, and awe. Something had arrived that no one could ignore. Something called humanity. The first part of this story ends with a single, undeniable truth echoing across the stars. The galaxy had been silent for too long. And now the humans were here. The news of the human warship spread faster than any scout fleet could travel. Across the Galactic Union, alarms sounded in stations and colonies. Screens flickered with images of the UNSS Leviathan, its gray hull long and angular, engines glowing faintly in the void. For a species that had only recently begun exploring space, humans had built a ship that dwarfed many capital vessels of the oldest civilizations. Panic settled in. Council halls were crowded with ambassadors, generals, and scientists. Each debated what the Leviathan meant. Could a single ship carry enough power to threaten entire systems? Did it carry weapons capable of planetary destruction? Could humans, so young in space travel, have mastered technology that rivaled even the most advanced species? "The readings are unusual," said Commander Avila of the Brithian fleet. Her claws tapped nervously on the council desk. "Its energy output exceeds that of any ship we have catalogued. Even its shields appear different, adaptive, unpredictable. We have underestimated them," whispered Ambassador Tarek Valen, the four-eyed scholar. "Humans have always been underestimated." Some delegates argued for caution, others for preemptive action. Rumors spread quickly. Some fleets began to prepare secretly, moving closer to the borders of human space. Others tried to make contact, sending messages, but the Leviathan ignored all attempts. It moved with slow purpose, seemingly waiting for the galaxy to understand something important. Humans were not afraid, but they demanded respect. Meanwhile, the humans on the Leviathan were calm. Commander Sarah Holt walked the bridge watching the starfield ahead. Sensors showed dozens of alien fleets assembling, but there was no sign of aggression. Yet. "Sir," Lieutenant Jameson reported, "we have incoming messages from multiple Union sectors. They are cautious." "Very cautious," Holt nodded. "Keep scanning. Let them come to us. They will learn soon enough that we do not seek war, but we are prepared." The Leviathan's engines glowed brighter as it approached neutral space. Small ships from various races approached cautiously, maintaining a safe distance. Every species wanted to be the first to understand humans, to gauge whether they were a threat or an ally. From a distance, the fleets observed the Leviathan. Scientists tried to calculate the ship's capabilities. Its size alone was impressive, longer than 50 kilometers, but its systems were unlike anything they had seen. Weapons arrays, energy shields, propulsion systems, all operated on principles that defied traditional galactic engineering. Some even suggested that the humans had discovered methods to harness energy from subspace itself, a feat that could revolutionize travel across the galaxy. The Leviathan transmitted its first official message, clear and direct. "This is Commander Sarah Holt of the United Nations starship Leviathan. We come in peace, but we are prepared." The words echoed through every communication channel. No alien language, no translation errors. It was as if the humans understood the galaxy and expected the galaxy to understand them in return. Panic and awe spread quickly. Military commanders adjusted their fleets. Scholars debated the implications. Merchants worried about trade disruption. And pirates? Pirates quietly retreated, afraid of what they could not understand. 1 week after the Leviathan's first appearance, the galaxy witnessed its first demonstration. Near a cluster of uncharted asteroids, a small Union convoy had been attacked by space pirates. The human ship responded instantly. Sensors detected a single energy pulse, quiet yet precise. Within minutes, the pirate ships were disabled, left drifting and harmless. A message appeared on every channel. "Do not harm civilians, ever." No Union commander had to act. The humans did it themselves, showing control, precision, and restraint. The galaxy was stunned. Here was a species capable of extraordinary power, yet they chose not to use it recklessly. Back on the Leviathan, Holt observed the aftermath. "Do you see?" she asked her officers. "This is how we demonstrate strength, without creating enemies unnecessarily. Power alone does not protect peace. Action guided by principles does." Lieutenant Jameson nodded. "The galaxy will remember this. Everyone is watching now, and they did." Across the stars, stories began to spread of the humans' first public action. Traders told tales of the Leviathan's size, speed, and strength. Scholars wrote papers on human strategy, wondering how a species with such a short history in space could have learned so much. Children across Union colonies began to imagine what it would be like to travel aboard the human ship. Even fleets that had once considered attacking humans reconsidered. They did not want to provoke a species capable of such precise force, and slowly a new understanding began to emerge. The humans were not conquerors. They were protectors, yet not all were convinced. Some feared that the Leviathan was only the first of many ships. What if humans intended to expand aggressively? What if this display of strength was only a warning? These questions led to secret meetings, clandestine fleets moving in the shadows, and whispered debates about galactic security. Holt anticipated this. She understood fear because humans had always faced it themselves. For centuries, they had survived natural disasters, wars, and conflicts. Fear did not break them. It strengthened them. Now humanity had brought that resilience to the stars. The Council of the Galactic Union finally convened a formal session. Leaders from every major civilization gathered to discuss the Leviathan. Some demanded a preemptive strike. Others pleaded for diplomacy. A few even suggested leaving the humans alone entirely, recognizing that their presence was too extraordinary to challenge without great risk. Trek Valen spoke last. His voice echoed across the chamber. "Humans are unlike any species we have encountered. They build not only with intelligence but with creativity and courage. They understand restraint and strategy. We do not yet know their limits, but we do know this: they will not attack unless provoked." And if they are provoked, we may witness something we are unprepared to handle." His words fell like stones into still water. The leaders sat in silence, absorbing the reality of a new player in the galaxy, one that could not be ignored. Meanwhile, the Leviathan continued its slow, deliberate approach. Small alien scouts tried to observe it, but the human ship's shields and stealth systems prevented detailed scans. Even the most advanced fleets could not penetrate its defenses. Every attempt left analysts puzzled, frustrated, and more impressed with human ingenuity. On the bridge, Holt reviewed the data. "We are not here to scare anyone," she said quietly. "We are here to protect ourselves and to show that humans can be trusted. But we will not hide who we are. The galaxy must see us as we are, strong, prepared, and fair." Her officers nodded, understanding that every action they took would be watched, studied, and remembered. The Leviathan was more than a warship. It was a message, a symbol of humanity's arrival among the stars. As days passed, the Leviathan remained near neutral space. Humans conducted exercises, training their crew, testing systems, and preparing for any potential conflict, but always with caution. They sent messages of diplomacy to nearby systems, clarifying that they sought alliances, trade, and understanding, not war. And slowly, the galaxy began to listen. Stories of the Leviathan's power were shared not just in official reports but in casual conversation. Merchants spoke of humans' ability to act decisively without aggression. Scientists speculated on their engineering. Soldiers debated their strategies. The Leviathan became a symbol of both respect and caution. Yet behind the calm, the galaxy was changing. Fears that had been buried for centuries resurfaced. Old rivalries paused only temporarily as species reconsidered their positions in the universe. Alliances shifted subtly. The Leviathan had done more than arrive. It had altered the balance of power without firing a single shot. For the humans, this was expected. They had anticipated fear, awe, and misunderstanding, but they had also prepared for patience. Commander Holt knew that the first impression mattered, and humans intended to show the galaxy that they were strong enough to protect themselves, disciplined enough to avoid unnecessary conflict, and clever enough to surprise anyone who underestimated them. The galaxy's first impression of humanity was not just one of strength. It was one of calm, controlled power. It was a lesson every species would remember. The humans had arrived not with destruction, but with a presence that demanded attention. And the galaxy, for all its history, had never seen anything quite like it. By the end of the first week, reports across Union space agreed on one thing: humanity had arrived. Not as conquerors, not as invaders, but as a force that could not be ignored. The UNSS Leviathan floated silently in the void, a quiet giant, waiting for the galaxy to adjust to its presence. And in that silence, every species understood one truth: the era of humanity among the stars had begun. The appearance of the UNSS Leviathan had already shaken the galaxy, but in the days that followed, the true impact began to sink in. Across star systems, fleets and colonies watched as the massive human warship moved slowly through neutral space. Its size, its speed, and the energy radiating from its engines had created more questions than answers. For centuries, the Galactic Union had believed it was the undisputed center of order. Its fleets could control borders, its scientists could analyze almost any technology, and its diplomats could resolve nearly any dispute. And yet humanity had arrived with a ship that defied all expectations. Panic spread quietly but effectively. Military commanders called emergency meetings. Scholars debated how humans could build a warship so massive and so advanced in a species so young. Merchants worried that trade routes near human space might become unsafe. Even pirates who thrived in chaos hesitated. Tales of the Leviathan's size and power circulated so fast that untested rumors began to appear as fact. Some claimed the humans could destroy planets with a single energy pulse. Others whispered that they had the ability to manipulate space itself. At the Galactic Union Council, discussions turned heated. "We cannot wait," shouted Admiral Krell of the Ruvian fleet. "They could strike at any moment. We must deploy our fleets and be ready for war." "War?" countered Ambassador Tarek Valen, his four eyes narrowing. "Do you not see? Humans have shown no aggression. They disabled a pirate fleet without harming civilians. They are powerful, yes, but disciplined. They act with purpose. A preemptive strike would only provoke them unnecessarily. Krell slammed his clawed hand on the desk. Purpose? We do not know their purpose. They could be planning to expand, to dominate. Their technology? It is beyond comprehension. How can we take the risk? Others in the council were silent, their scales or fur bristling with anxiety. No species had ever encountered an unknown power so sudden and precise. Humans had arrived like a shadow, unannounced and yet undeniable. Meanwhile, on the Leviathan, Commander Sarah Holt and her crew monitored the galaxy's reaction. Their sensors picked up fleets moving nervously, communication signals buzzing with fear and curiosity. The humans understood the impact of their presence. It was not enough to be strong. They had to demonstrate restraint. Let them see who we are, Holt said calmly. Power without control invites fear. Control without power invites disrespect. We will show both without threatening anyone unnecessarily. Lieutenant Jameson, scanning Union transmissions, added, They are beginning to realize that we are not typical humans. Even the fleets that were closest to hostile action are now hesitating. Holt nodded. Good, observation first, confrontation never unless forced. That is how humans survive. That is how humans thrive. Despite the humans' careful approach, fear grew. Across star systems, Union fleets stationed near human space began sending patrols deeper into neutral sectors. Reports from scouts painted a picture of a species unlike any other. Humans could repair damaged ships in hours, predict enemy maneuvers, and coordinate with precision that stunned even veteran commanders. In addition to military prowess, rumors about humans' history began to circulate. Some species had only scratched the surface of their understanding. Humans had survived countless disasters on their home planet. Wars that lasted centuries, natural disasters that destroyed entire cities, and social conflicts that could have torn their civilization apart. Yet humans endured. They rebuilt. They innovated. They survived and they thrived. Across the galaxy, this realization unsettled everyone. The species that had seemed so young and fragile suddenly appeared unstoppable in both creativity and strategy. Even fleets that had once dominated local regions reconsidered their positions. Are we overestimating them? Asked Commander Avila, who had previously pushed for immediate action against the Leviathan. She reviewed reports from multiple systems. Every detail suggested humans were stronger and smarter than anyone had anticipated. Trek Valen shook his head slowly. No, we are underestimating them if we think this is all. Humans always exceed expectations. Their history on Earth shows it. Their approach to space proves it. You do not fully appreciate the caution and preparation they employ, and now they are here, calm, ready, and in control. Even as the galaxy wrestled with fear and curiosity, humans continued their routine aboard the Leviathan. Engineers tested propulsion systems that could outrun most fleets. Scientists monitored subspace anomalies and experimented with energy manipulation. Crew members trained tirelessly, learning every possible defensive and tactical maneuver. Yet Holt's orders were clear. They would not act unless necessary. They had power, but they also had patience. Every day they transmitted diplomatic messages to nearby species, assuring them that humans did not seek conquest. We only wish to explore, to learn, and to protect ourselves if required, one such message stated. Still, the presence of a single Leviathan caused waves across the galaxy. Families in distant colonies looked up at the stars, wondering what it would mean to encounter humans. Traders reconsidered routes near the border. Fleets shifted quietly in anticipation, and across every system, pilots whispered stories of a giant ship that moved silently yet radiated control and power. Then, the first real test came. A group of border pirates, thinking humans were overhyped, attempted to raid a supply convoy near the neutral sector. Their ships moved quickly, confident that no one could match them. They were wrong. Sensors on the Leviathan detected the pirates instantly. Human ships launched quietly, intercepting the raiders before they could fire a single shot. The Leviathan did not use destructive weapons. Instead, small energy pulses disabled engines and navigation systems. In minutes, the pirates drifted helpless, unable to continue their attack. A message was broadcast across the sector, in perfect galactic common: do not harm civilians ever. The Union fleets monitoring the event were stunned. Here was a species capable of extraordinary power, Yet it exercised restraint. Civilians were protected. Pirates were neutralized. The Leviathan had shown force without unnecessary violence. Across the galaxy, reactions varied. Some species breathed a sigh of relief, seeing humans as protectors. Others felt a new unease, realizing that if humans were provoked, no fleet would stand a chance against them. Stories and rumors began to spread faster than official reports. Even the most disciplined fleets debated strategies for the unknown humans, unsure whether to attempt diplomacy or remain cautious. Back on the Leviathan, Holt watched the aftermath quietly. "Every action sends a message," she told her officers. "The galaxy must understand us without fear, but they must also respect that we are prepared. Strength without restraint invites conflict. Restraint without strength invites disrespect. Humans must show both." Her crew nodded. They understood the importance of perception. Every scan, every maneuver, every message was a carefully calculated step in introducing humanity to the galaxy. As the days passed, fleets from various species approached cautiously. Sensors could detect their curiosity, their fear, their tentative desire to communicate. Some sent diplomatic envoys. Others remained silent, observing quietly. Humans received each approach calmly, responding politely but firmly. In private, scientists aboard the Leviathan marveled at the reactions. Lieutenant Morales, a human engineer, said, "I've never seen such fear and awe combined. They're watching every move we make, trying to understand how we do everything so efficiently." Commander Holt smiled. "Let them watch. Observation first, confrontation never. Let them learn that humans act with thought, courage, and purpose." Even as the Leviathan remained near the border, its presence reshaped the galaxy. Wars paused, trade disputes slowed, and the whispers of a new power spread everywhere. Humans had arrived not as conquerors, but as a force that demanded recognition and respect. And the galaxy, for all its history, had never faced a species quite like humanity. By the end of the first month, the Union Council reached a cautious conclusion. Humans were not immediately hostile, but their capabilities required careful attention. Fleets were adjusted. Communications were formalized. Observations became more detailed. And still the Leviathan waited, calm and silent, teaching the galaxy a lesson in power, patience, and restraint. For humans, it was only the beginning. The galaxy's fear was understandable. They had arrived suddenly. They had power unlike anything known, and they had the discipline to use it wisely. Humanity would continue to prove that strength and morality could coexist, that courage could inspire, and that even a single ship could change the course of a galaxy. And as systems across the stars whispered about the human warship, one undeniable truth became clear. The galaxy was afraid, and it was learning to respect humanity. The Galactic Union had waited weeks debating how to approach the humans. Every fleet commander, every diplomat, every scientist had their own opinion. Some wanted to attack first, fearing the unknown. Others urged caution, hoping diplomacy could prevent conflict. Finally, the Council agreed on a single plan. They would send one ambassador, carefully chosen to meet with Commander Holt aboard the UNSS Leviathan. Tarek Valoon, the four-eyed Zarkon scholar and experienced diplomat, was chosen. His species had a long history of negotiation, and Tarek himself had worked with dozens of civilizations, resolving conflicts without violence. But even he was nervous. Humanity was unlike any species he had encountered. The stories, the rumors, the reports of their intelligence, resourcefulness, and discipline, all were intimidating. When Tarek approached the Leviathan in his small scout ship, he felt the weight of the moment. This was not just a meeting. It was the first direct contact between humans and the broader galaxy at large. The ship's sensors monitored every approach, every movement, every pulse of energy from the human vessel. The Leviathan opened a docking bay. Its massive doors slid aside silently, revealing the interior of the ship. Tarek's scout ship moved inside carefully. The docking clamps engaged smoothly. He took a deep breath before stepping into the corridor. Immediately, he noticed something unusual. Humans were everywhere, but not in the manner he expected. There were no rigid formations of soldiers, no tense security details glaring at him. Instead, humans moved with purpose but calmness. They laughed quietly, worked on equipment, shared stories, and even helped each other with tasks. He followed a guide to the bridge where Commander Sarah Holt awaited. Holt was standing tall, confident, but her expression was calm. Her uniform was simple but neat, decorated with subtle symbols of rank and achievement. "Welcome, Ambassador Tarek," she said in perfect galactic common. Her voice was steady, polite, and confident. "We have been expecting you." Tarek nodded, bowing slightly in his own species custom. "Thank you for receiving me, Commander. I must admit your ship, it is unlike anything the galaxy has seen. And you, humans, you are unlike any species we have encountered." Holt smiled gently. "We have had little reason to show ourselves until now. But we understand your curiosity and we want to be clear. Humanity does not seek conflict. We only seek understanding, exploration, and the ability to protect ourselves if necessary." Tarek's eyes, well, his 4 eyes, studied her carefully. There was no arrogance in her words, no threat. Yet the Leviathan itself radiated power. Every decision Holt had made, every system aboard the ship, every pulse of energy showed discipline and preparation. He realized that humanity had combined intelligence, courage, and morality in ways he had never seen before. "I am curious," he said. "Your fleets are small, yet your capabilities seem unmatched. How have humans, a species so young in space, achieved this?" Holt led him to a viewing platform overlooking the ship's inner mechanics. "It is not simply technology," she explained. "It is creativity, problem-solving, and learning from history. Humans have survived many challenges on our home planet. We have faced disasters, wars, and scarcity. Each challenge taught us resilience. Each failure taught us improvement. We applied the same principles to building the Leviathan and our systems in space." Tarek looked impressed. "And the ship itself? Its design, its engines, its defenses? All made with purpose," Holt said. "Every system can adapt. Every mechanism has multiple backups. Every weapon is precise and controlled. We do not seek to dominate others, but we will protect ourselves. We are prepared because the galaxy can be unpredictable, and history has taught humans to always expect the unexpected." Tarek paused. His 4 eyes scanned the bridge, noting humans coordinating with smooth efficiency. "I must admit, your presence alone has changed the galaxy. Fleets have paused, disputes have slowed, even piracy has decreased. All without a single act of aggression." Holt nodded. "Power without restraint is dangerous. Restraint without power is ignored. Humans believe in both. We hope our actions demonstrate that peace is worth protecting, and that we are capable of protecting it." The ambassador continued walking through the ship, observing more of humanity's culture. Crew members trained together in simulation rooms. Scientists worked on advanced engines, and even artists were present, sketching the stars as they passed. Humans valued knowledge, creativity, and discipline in equal measure. Finally, Tarek asked a question that had been on his mind since he first heard about humanity. "Commander Holt, why the Leviathan? Why build a single massive warship instead of a fleet of smaller ships?" Holt's gaze was steady. "Because history taught us that presence can be more effective than numbers. A single disciplined force communicates confidence. It shows that we are serious about protecting ourselves, but also that we can focus our resources on efficiency rather than sheer quantity. The Leviathan is a statement. Humans are here, we are capable, and we will act with responsibility." Trek studied her carefully. "You speak of responsibility, yet your actions with the pirates showed restraint beyond expectation. Most species in your position would have acted with overwhelming force." "That is true," Holt said. "Humans have always learned that strength is meaningless without principles. Force used recklessly destroys not only others but ourselves. We prefer precision and thoughtfulness. That is how humans survive. That is how humans thrive." As the ambassador walked further into the ship, he realized the humans' true power. Not their weapons, not their size, but their discipline, creativity, and courage. Every human aboard the Leviathan seemed to embody those qualities. Every action, every decision reflected centuries of learning and adaptation. Finally, Holt led Tarek to the observation deck, where the stars stretched endlessly in every direction. "We are explorers," she said softly. "We do not conquer. We do not subjugate. We only wish to understand and to protect ourselves. And if we can help others, we will." Tarek felt a shift inside him. He had expected to see arrogance, pride, or even hostility. Instead, he found calm, discipline, and courage. Humans had mastered the art of power with responsibility. The Leviathan was not just a warship. It was a symbol. When Tarek returned to his own ship, he carried a message back to the Council. Humanity, he reported, is unlike any species we have encountered. They are strong, disciplined, and precise. They have power, but they choose to exercise restraint. They have wisdom, courage, and creativity. We must not fear them, but we must respect them. And I believe the galaxy will be better with humans among us. The Council listened. Some were still cautious, fearing what they did not fully understand, but even skeptics could not deny the evidence. Humanity had arrived. They had made first contact with clarity, confidence, and calm. They had demonstrated power without threat, restraint without hesitation. Across the galaxy, the Leviathan's reputation grew. Stories spread of humans' discipline, intelligence, and courage. Scholars debated their strategies. Merchants reconsidered trade routes near human space. Even children played games pretending to explore the stars aboard the Leviathan. And yet humanity continued quietly. Holt and her crew trained, explored, and prepared. They sent messages of diplomacy, offering alliances and peaceful exploration. They had arrived not as conquerors, but as a force that demanded respect through their actions and character. Trek Valen's report to the Council became a turning point. For the first time, the galaxy began to see humans not as an unknown threat, but as a model of courage, creativity, and responsibility. The Leviathan was more than a ship. It was a lesson. Power paired with principles could reshape the galaxy, even without a single act of aggression. And on the bridge of the Leviathan, Commander Holt knew the truth. The galaxy was watching, learning, and adjusting. Humans had arrived, not just as a species among many, but as a symbol of what courage, intelligence, and responsibility could achieve. The first meeting had ended, but a new chapter of history had begun. Humanity was no longer hidden in the stars. They were seen, understood, and respected, and the galaxy, for all its fears and wonders, would never be the same again. Weeks had passed since the first official meeting between humanity and the Galactic Union. The galaxy had begun to adjust to the presence of the UNSS Leviathan, a single, massive human warship that had changed everything without firing a single destructive shot. Yet even as peace seemed to settle, the galaxy remained aware. Humans were not ordinary. They were strong, disciplined, and intelligent, and the Leviathan's mere presence reminded everyone of that truth. Commander Sarah Holt stood on the bridge of the Leviathan, her eyes scanning the endless stars. The ship moved quietly through neutral space, its massive engines producing energy, yet leaving no threat of aggression. Humans were explorers, protectors, and diplomats all at once. Their actions had already begun to reshape the galaxy's balance. Reports came in from across star systems. Pirates had vanished from trade routes. Disputes between minor empires had slowed, as rival fleets hesitated to escalate conflicts near human-controlled space. Traders had begun rerouting their convoys to avoid unnecessary conflict, while simultaneously reporting remarkable efficiency in communication with human representatives. "The Leviathan is becoming a symbol," said Lieutenant Jameson, standing beside Holt. "Not just of strength, but of order, of fairness. Everywhere we appear, people notice and they adjust." Holt nodded. "That is the purpose. Humanity does not conquer for power, but we exist to show that power used responsibly can protect everyone. That is the lesson the galaxy must learn." In the months that followed, humanity extended its diplomatic reach. The Leviathan traveled through neutral space, visiting colonies and outposts. Humans met with local leaders, discussed trade agreements, and offered assistance in rebuilding systems that had suffered natural disasters or previous conflicts. Their reputation as disciplined protectors spread faster than any fleet could travel. Across the galaxy, reactions varied. Some species were curious and eager to cooperate. Others were cautious, still unsure of the humans' true intentions. But all were watching, analyzing, and learning. Even the most aggressive empires paused to reconsider their strategies when dealing with humanity. The first major test of the Leviathan's presence came unexpectedly. A system at the edge of the Union had been blockaded by a rogue fleet attempting to claim resources unlawfully. Normally, the Union would have deployed several fleets over weeks to resolve the situation. But this time, the rogue commanders hesitated. Intelligence reported that the Leviathan had entered the sector. In hours, human scouts intercepted the rogue fleet. Instead of attacking recklessly, the humans disabled engines and weapon systems with precise, controlled pulses. Communication channels opened, Your actions are unlawful. Leave the system immediately or we will enforce the rules. No harm to civilians will be tolerated. The fleet complied. Not a single ship was destroyed, not a single life was lost. Reports of this event spread quickly. Across Union colonies, whispers circulated. Humanity did not strike out of anger or pride, but from principle. Scholars, traders, and military leaders began to see humans in a new light. Strength could be used responsibly. Discipline could inspire respect. Courage could maintain peace. And the Leviathan became the embodiment of all these ideals. In time, the Galactic Union formally invited humans to join as official members. The decision was unprecedented. No species had ever arrived so recently with such limited colonies and yet with such undeniable skill, intelligence, and moral discipline. Humans accepted, but they insisted on continuing their exploratory missions independently, showing the galaxy that cooperation did not require domination. Back on the Leviathan, Holt reviewed reports of young species inspired by humans. Children across multiple star systems were now playing crew of the Leviathan, pretending to navigate, explore, and solve problems like humans did. Teachers and scholars referenced human strategies in classrooms. Even rival fleets had begun studying humanity, not as enemies but as examples of innovation and integrity. People everywhere are learning from us, Lieutenant Morales said. It's not just fear anymore, it's respect, Holt smiled. And that is how humans lead. Not by intimidation, not by aggression, but by example. The galaxy will remember this moment. As years passed, humans continued to expand cautiously. Colonies were established, always with care to respect local ecosystems and neighboring civilizations. Technology sharing increased. Humans taught methods for energy efficiency, shipbuilding, and resource management that many species had thought impossible. The Leviathan remained a sentinel, never threatening. Always present, a reminder that humans were strong, prepared, and disciplined. In one notable event, a natural disaster struck a minor planet on the edge of the Union. The humans arrived first, coordinating rescue efforts, rebuilding infrastructure, and ensuring safety. News spread rapidly. Civilians from multiple species hailed humans as heroes. Scholars documented the operation in detail, and the Leviathan's reputation as a protector solidified further. Across the galaxy, legends began to form. Stories of the Leviathan's arrival, its discipline, its precision, and humanity's courage were told in schools, gatherings, and even informal storytelling among traders and pilots. The humans had achieved something remarkable. They had become a symbol of hope, strength, and responsibility. Even old rivalries began to fade. Empires that had once competed aggressively now reconsidered their disputes. The presence of humans reminded everyone that power could be tempered with morality, that courage could be matched with wisdom, and that even a single ship could influence the galaxy for the better. Back aboard the Leviathan, Holt reflected on their journey. Humanity had arrived quietly but with purpose. They had shown the galaxy that discipline, intelligence, and courage could coexist. They had demonstrated that strength need not be destructive, and that restraint could be just as powerful as action. In the council chambers, Trek Valen addressed a gathering of species from across the galaxy. Humanity arrived as an unknown, untested species. They could have threatened us, intimidated us, or sought to dominate, yet they did none of these things. They showed power with responsibility, strength with discipline, and courage with wisdom. Their actions remind us that the galaxy is not just about conquest or survival. It is about protection, learning, and unity. And with that, the galaxy shifted. Not overnight, but gradually, humans inspired a new era. Wars were fewer, trade expanded safely, and piracy declined. Fleets adjusted not to attack, but to observe, to learn, and to cooperate. Humans had changed the galaxy, not through fear, but through action guided by principles. The Leviathan itself became a symbol. Children across systems played games imagining life aboard the ship. Scholars studied human strategy. Diplomats cited humanity's example when resolving disputes. And every time a new species faced the unknown, they remembered the human motto carved on the Leviathan's hull: "We come in peace, but we are prepared." Even centuries later, historians would write of that first human warship. The day the Leviathan appeared would be remembered as the moment the galaxy began to understand humanity. Disciplined, courageous, clever, and moral. A species that had arrived quietly yet changed everything. Holt looked out across the stars, watching systems flourish, colonies thrive, and species cooperate. "This is just the beginning," she said quietly. "Humanity will always be ready, not to dominate, not to conquer, but to protect, to explore, and to inspire. That is what it means to be human." The Leviathan moved silently through space, a giant sentinel in the galaxy watched. No one dared to challenge it. Not because they feared humanity, but because they respected what humans represented. Courage tempered with wisdom, strength paired with responsibility, and the ability to lead by example. And so, the legend of the Leviathan began. Humans had arrived in the galaxy not as conquerors, but as protectors. They had shown that even a single species, a single ship, and a single decision could change the course of history. Across the stars, every species learned to hope, to cooperate, and to recognize that humanity's arrival marked a new chapter, an era of unity, courage, and respect. The galaxy, once silent and complacent, now buzzed with stories, inspiration, and curiosity. Humanity's first appearance had shaken fears, changed minds, and left an enduring mark. And through it all, the Leviathan sailed onward, its engines glowing quietly, its crew working diligently, and humanity watching over the stars, ready, disciplined, and unwavering. For the first time in history, the galaxy understood that strength was not only measured in power, but in courage, wisdom, and morality. Humanity had proven that, and the legend of the Leviathan would echo through the cosmos forever.